through the browser, so we don't have to worry about the CMS becoming a proxy or a bottleneck. This is a hybrid decoupled integration and provides us with a ton of benefits over a purely decoupled integration. We also have some different mechanisms for doing optional edge-side rendering if we need to do things like server-side rendering or SEO performance improvements. Generally speaking, we want to limit the number of front-end integrations that are happening in the client so that we can have really great performance. So what does this look like? Here we can see a wireframe of what would be a typical or standard e-commerce system. Everything that's listed in white is something that is managed and created within the CMS, typically using the low-code tools. Things that you see that are in blue are things that are going to be personalized. That's going to be unique to the user using a personalized service that's included in the platform. The items that are pink are going to be those web components. These are things that are transactional, that are personal, or that deal with that integration at the client-side level. Everything else is managed using the low-code tools within the system. The great thing about this is you can also use Acquia Search to power the entire catalog, and you don't lose any of the functionality or any of the tools that come built into the system. So how do those web components work? Well, there's a module in the CMS called the component module. What it does is it allows a JavaScript developer to write a simple YAML file, as the one you see here. This allows that component to be auto-discovered and imported into the system without any extra work. The great thing about this is that once that happens, it's available in the system just like anything else. So for the site builder, for the business user, they can use these components just like they would with everything else. Assembling these, you get the idea of composable commerce. So you have the ability to take these components and put them together. Here you can see that we're seeing the cart page with all of these different components. They're rendered on the front end and they communicate with each other. And the CMS is simply responsible for the styling and placement of these components, creating a true composable experience. The net result is a beautiful experience that's controlled through the UI without having to deploy code. Now, because Acquia CMS is API first, it offers a ton of options for these developers on how they want to interact and use these APIs. For example, JSON API support is provided in the core of the CMS out of the box. Nothing extra needs to be done. And there are numerous SDKs and libraries available to take advantage of this common industry standard. Secondly, for developers that would choose and prefer to use something like GraphQL, there's a massive ecosystem of GraphQL modules and enhancements that work together, including sample apps and code to help you get going quickly. These can be turned on and integrated in a moment without any additional work. And then finally, there are a number of different options for creating custom REST endpoints, including a no-code version built into the system itself. There's a UI for the creation and management of customizable endpoints that provide everything that you need for the no-code options. All of these things together mean that Kevin is able to create the JavaScript web components, deal with the hybrid integration, and he knows he can always access the data using any of these API features that are available to him. Now we're going to follow the media management with Whitney, the UX designer. She's going to be using Acquia DAM to manage her media assets and make them available in the system. When she logs in, she gets a number of folders, and you can create as many of these as you like. And these folders allow her to manage the assets as well as who has access to them. But for now, let's take a look at one of these folders that we already have. We'll see the 2019 winter collection. Uploading new files is easy. She can use an import Dropbox, or she can directly add the files right here. Once she does this, a lot of things are going to happen. The system is going to analyze the file. It's going to process it and start to work on understanding what it is. And if we take a look here, what we'll see, hold on one second. And if we take a look, we'll see a number of different things. There is meta information that we can add or modify. This will be pulled in from the photo or the image itself if it's available. You can also see that there's machine learning going on, giving us different options on tags that might be applied. So for example, clothing, female, dress, fashion. We might even want to put in some colors or things. And here are all of the existing keywords that are in place, so we could choose some of the ones that were already there. Whitney's going to go ahead and save this. Now that this media item has been added and it's been tagged, it'll be much easier to find. Now, all of this is great because it can be surfaced in a number of different ways. The Figura team all have logins and access to all of the assets that are in the DAM. There's also a brand portal that's available for customers and employees and vendor partners that might be outside. And we can actually look at this portal and we can see, for example, these different collections that are in place. This allows the Figura to make some of their assets available externally, and they can have control over when they're available, what the options are, and how you choose to use them. The great thing about all of this is that these images are then going to be available within the CMS itself so that they can be used to create the content using the brand and standard compliant assets that have been managed by Whitney. Next, let's take a look at what Eric is doing. Eric is managing all of the sites that live within Site Factory. Through this interface, he's able to manage groups and permissions, create, delete, or swap sites, and access the different profiles or preset starting points that are available, all from a single code base. He also has the ability to have single sign-on into any of these sites and to manage them at a high level. So when Eric comes in, he's got the ability to manage all of the sites that are here. In this case, we have about 300 sites that are living within this one Site Factory instance. As I jump into one of the groups, you'll notice that I can decide who has access to this group. I can also manage different subgroups of sites, and I can add different access levels to those as well. This provides governance and standardization. When we go in to create a new site, you'll notice that when we go through and select which server stack it's on, we have a number of different installation profiles that are available. So in this case, you can see we have a commerce site, a branded site, a decoupled instance, or even something that's completely custom or simple. The great thing about this is that all of these instances that can be created are on one single code base. So when I go in and I'm working with the sites that I have, all of my updates can take place at the same time across all of the sites from this single code base. That's why it's possible for Kevin to actually manage the entire platform as a single person, because he can manage the code base for all 300 sites at the same time. However, Eric has the ability to create any number of sites in any of the predetermined configurations that we saw. So he also has that ability to control the groups and permissions, and when we get right down to it, he can also log in directly to any of these sites with the correct permissions so that he can manage those sites as well. Site Factory makes it possible to manage sites at scale, from dozens to hundreds to thousands of sites using a single code base very easily and efficiently across the entire team. Let's take a look at how Kevin is able to use the low-code tools in the CMS to build and manage the sites at a high level. We'll take a look at how he's able to manage the structured data, how he's able to configure the progressive web app settings that are built in, the dynamic query builder that allows him to manage dynamic lists of data, and then finally how he's able to package, import, and export the configuration as he sees fit. As we saw earlier, when Kevin logs into the site, he gets an admin menu with more options than are typically available due to his heightened permissions. There are also a number of content types available out of the box with Acquia CMS. If we take a look at one of these, let's look at article, there are a number of different fields that are available. This is structured data. Each field has a specific place and a type in the database. We have the ability to manage and change the settings. Kevin also can go in and add new types of information fields to adapt the data model as he sees fit. Additionally, Kevin can control how the form is going to be displayed to the content creator, so he can craft the best experience and user interface for his team. Next, we see that Kevin has enabled the progressive web application settings in the site. This means that the site will be optionally available offline, and it's going to be prefetching and caching data for a faster, more responsive experience. There are a number of different options that are available here, and Kevin's actually gone in to set the specific URLs to cache and which ones to ignore. What's also going to happen is this allows the site to actually set itself up and have the ability to install it as an actual progressive web app in the browser. Next, let's take a look at the dynamic query builder that's available in the system. Here you can see there are a number of different queries and sites that have been set up. In this case, we have a listing of articles, a listing of files. Some of these are for front-end users to view and browse, including the catalog. And some of these are for admin users to manage the site. Let's take a look at a quick example here, which is actually creating an API endpoint. Now, when we take a look, what we're going to see are a number of different options that are available. We can choose the type of export that we want, the path that's going to be set on, many different options for how it's going to be done, and then we also see that we have the ability to manage the fields and the data and the type that's going to be coming out. In advanced usage, we can also set up relationships to other types of data, format how all of this is going to go, preview, and see how we're going to be able to use this in the system. This is great because it allows Kevin a lot more granular control over doing dynamic and automatic things with the database without having to go in and write the queries or do things on his own. Finally, let's take a look at the package management system. Within the system, we have the ability to import and export different packages and configurations that are preset. So for example, if there are some different components or settings or content types that are useful on this site that Kevin would like to use elsewhere, he actually has the ability to go in and create a new package and take any of these. For example, he might choose to grab the 2-column layout that's available, the content template for the article content type, and perhaps he wants to grab a menu template that's available. All of these will be packaged together and will be available for Kevin to download. He can preview and see which specific items are going to be used, and he can download these directly out. The great thing about this is that Kevin has the ability to not only upload those into the UI and the other system without having to go through any additional work, or he has the ability to actually go and put this into that single code base that we saw again. Either way, Kevin has a lot of different options and choices for how he can take the work that he's done in this site and package it for reuse in that business capability sense through this site or others or all the way across all the 300 sites. Next, let's take a look at some of the work that Whitney does with the design system that's built into the low-code tool. We'll see how she's able to manage site-wide styles and branding, create custom image styles to resize images appropriately in an automatic way, create custom CSS options through the site, and then finally, how she can manage the entire theme level by creating and editing templates in the site. When Whitney logs in, she gets a similar admin experience to what Kevin has seen. When she goes in, she has a lot of choices here about how she can manage the site from a design standpoint. For example, she can actually go in and manage the responsive grid settings and the breakpoints that are available for the site across all different viewpoints. Here we can see how those can be managed, and she can change these, and they will be filtered down to the entire system anywhere that those viewpoints and breakpoints are being used. She also has the ability to manage the standard color palette. This makes it really easy for Whitney to change the design colors that are being used across the entire site. As you can see, this is just using CSS variables to replace those colors. And so anywhere that they're being used, she can manage and change those quickly and easily, and it will filter through the entire site. One of the things that's really valuable is the ability to make sure that the images that you have are sized appropriately for the correct device and format that you're using. As you can see here, Whitney actually has the ability to create image styles that are going to resize the images to the proper size and format based on her settings. And there are a number of different image adjustment options that are available. These will be used with the HTML responsive image templates so that the right image is delivered to the right device at the right time. Whitney also has the ability to create custom styles. These custom styles can be used and applied across the site from a site level, from a page level, or a component level. Here, for example, we can see that we have a bunch of different button options that are available. If we take a look at a Read More button, we see that we have the ability not only to manage the styles, but we get a live preview of what that style looks like. It's interactive, so we can see how it's going to work. Here we can see all of the style settings that are being set. We can go in and we can make changes to these. Great. And we have the ability to add additional CSS styles as needed. One of the great things about this is that because we have this UI to control it, we cut down on user errors by up to 90%. Finally, we have the ability to manage templates from within the UI. Whitney doesn't have to write code or deploy any of these templates in order to make them effective on the system. For example, let's take a look at the content templates that are available. We saw earlier how we have the article content type, and not only can we manage the template, we can also manage different view modes or different versions of that specific template. If we take a look at the card view mode for an article, this gives us the ability to show an article in a card format. Here we have the different HTML elements that are being done. You can see we have the background image, which is being fed by tokens in the actual content itself, including the title that's going to be available as well. And here we see one of those custom styles that Whitney has now been able to apply to the entire system. By using the templates and styles in the low-code tool that's built into the site, Whitney can easily manage and scale her design system across the entire application. As we saw earlier, Whitney has the ability to create and manage a design system from a style perspective with templates, styles, and all of the settings for the system itself. But because this is a component-based system, she also has the ability to create and manage those components. So what does this look like? When she's logged in, she has all of the components that are available to her here. If we take a look, we can see that there are a number of different types of components. Some of these are what we would call primitive components, like a layout, or something basic like a heading or a text. Some of these are more complex components, like a hero, which combines multiple elements together to create a more complex interface. You can organize these components by type and by role, and you can limit permissions and access to them through the permission system. Let's take a look at how it works to create and manage one of these components. To start with, let's take an existing component, and let's go ahead and clone it. Because we have the ability to take an existing component and duplicate it and make modifications, this means that the more you grow your component design system, the faster and easier you are able to work. Here we can see in the first point the specific HTML elements that are being used. Here we can see the heading, the paragraph, and the actual link, as well as the image that's going to be put in place. This defines the HTML structure that's going to be output. We also have the ability to take a quick look and see how this is going to work once we have some dummy content put in place. Now, creating these components is just the first part. The other part is giving users the ability to customize them. Here we can see that Whitney also has the ability to create an entire interactive form that allows the user to put in all of the specific information that they need. She also has a full system for creating new fields and managing this form. In addition, Whitney's going to get a live preview of what the form is going to look like and how it's going to work. This means that she can be very clear on how the users are going to use this and ensure that the user experience is exactly what she wants. With shared styles and the ability to clone and modify these components, the designer here can easily expand the richness of the system with greater speed over time without losing governance or consistency. As you can see, even though Whitney's starting to create a new card component, all of the existing work that was done is something that she gets to inherit and reuse. Next, we'll take a look at how these components come together to allow the author to assemble content quickly and easily. All of the work that's been done so far by Kevin, Whitney, and Eric, it all comes together here where Vanessa is able to take those preset tools, the components, and the site builder options, and actually create the content that she wants to realize her vision. In this section, we're going to take a look at a few things. First, we're going to see the customizable authoring dashboard that's available to Vanessa. We're going to take a look at that structured content that we saw before. And then finally, we're going to look at content assembly by taking different components and putting them together. Inside the site, we can see that Vanessa has the ability to access a moderation dashboard. Now, this dashboard gives her some information about what's been going on in the site, some of the content that she has available, and is completely customizable. Here we're using those dynamic query building tools to actually make custom reports to show us exactly what we need to see. Now, when we take a look, Vanessa's going to actually be able to take a look at all of the content that's currently available. And if we see something like an article, when we open this up, we can see what it looks like. But when we go in to edit this article, we'll see that that structured data format and the configurable form that Kevin created are available to let us easily create content over time. By having this structured content available, it means we're able to quickly and easily create reproducible content that has the same format. This means that it can be used in a number of ways and it's always going to work great for us. There are a number of different options that we have available in terms of being able to manage things like meta tags, see the status of translations, set the path, and even take it through the workflow moderation. All of this makes it easy for Vanessa to create structured content that's going to look good and work well with the rest of the site. However, sometimes you have a need to create something that might not be quite so structured. In this case, we have the ability to create content that's more like a landing page or unstructured content by assembling components that we put together. Here, we could go through and start to build out all of the different pieces that we need to create the page that Vanessa wants to see. However, we also have the ability to use what are called helpers. A helper is like a preset blueprint that enables us to quickly take work that's already been done and put things together again. So here we can see that just by dragging this over, now Vanessa has a starting place with a hero that's already got all of the components put in place, an About Us section, images, and services. At this point, she can go in and she can make the changes that she needs to. So for example, she can go in and set the actual background for this particular piece. So let's take an image from the existing system. And she can also modify the content, the data, the links, And all of these are those components that Whitney put together for her. In this case, let's go ahead and save this as a draft. This means it's not going to be published yet. It's just a working draft that's going to go through the approval workflows that we'll see later, so that this can actually go public after it's had a chance to be reviewed. As we can see here, we've got a fully functional page with a lot of stuff that's already set up for us. All of this was put together by that helper, so it makes it really easy for Vanessa to go in and modify this and make sure that she's going to be using the same standards over and over and over again. Now, in this case, we only changed one image just to be quick, but you can see how well this works out. With all of this flexibility, Vanessa is able to do a lot of what she wants just by taking the different pieces and putting them together. Once she is done with going through and modifying and editing this, she'll be able to put it into a review state. When that happens, it's going to notify Eric that it's ready to be reviewed, and he's going to be able to take a look and see if there are changes that still need to be made or if it's going to be available to be published. The final step in the content lifecycle is content approval. Most of the content is going to go through a workflow process to make sure that it has final reviews before it's published. That way the content can have many drafts, can live there, and we don't have to worry about if it's going to be pushed out before it's ready to go. What Eric's going to do is he's going to take a look at some of the content that's ready for review and decide if it needs to be worked on some more, or if it could be scheduled or even published live. We'll also take a look at some of the notifications that take place. Now, when Vanessa created that content, it actually did a few things. When she put it into the review state, it actually sent an email to Eric to let him know that there was something waiting for his review. If he missed the email or he forgot, next time he logs into the system and goes to his dashboard, he's going to see that he has content in a review state that he needs to take a look at. Now, at this point, Eric has a number of options. He could go through, he could make some changes himself, he could put some notes in, and then he could decide to change the workflow state. In this case, he could send it back to a draft, he could delete it, or he could go ahead and publish it directly. Additionally, Eric or Vanessa have the option of going in and making sure that this content is going to be published the right time in the right place. So as you can see, we can actually schedule a status change. We can change it to be published at a specific date at a specific time. We can also go in and set another state change if we want it to be unpublished or archived. This gives us complete control and automation over the content, so we can have multiple changes taking place at the same time. As mentioned before, the entire workflow state is completely customizable. If we take a look at the workflows that are available, we can see that while we currently only have one, we can add a number of different workflows for anything in the system. If we see here, workflows have different states they can be in and transitions between those states. These can be modified and changed. For example, we could add a workflow state for legal review or for final product review. We can also determine who has the permissions to change things from one state to another and have complete and total governance. As mentioned before, we also have the ability to set up notifications so that when people are in the right place, they'll get the information that they need. In this case, we have two email templates. One for when content is ready for review that will send a note to the editor for publication, and another for when something has been taken from review back into draft with an email note letting them know that they need to go take a look and see what the notes are. By having the workflow tools available directly in the CMS, it means that we don't have to worry about having a content lifecycle that has to have be a bottleneck for deployments. All the content lives within the system, and it has a full revision history, so we can actually go in and we can see what's happened to it at any point in time across the entire lifecycle. And throughout all of this, we can revert back to Throughout all of this, we can look at or revert back to an earlier version at any point in time. We can also set the state changes to be published or unpublished with a scheduling system and create very complex workflows that can be adapted to your needs.
Meet Amira, marketing analyst. As a marketing analyst, Amira has access to a number of different charts and dashboards available in the Acquia Marketing Cloud that provide her important details on her customers. Amira wants to take this data a step further, though, and drive some real insights for the business. Through the lens of Amira, we are going to see how, leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can analyze campaign performance and understand return on ad spend and performance. What Amir is able to do, leveraging the solution, is evaluate previous segments and campaigns to really understand their success. In this view, we can see some previous campaigns that have run, and we've actually broken them down into 3 tiers: high value, medium value, low value. Across those, Amira is going to look at some key metrics. Think average order value, revenue per customer. We can even break them down by gender. We can look at transaction counts. All this is information, as an example, that would be available at your fingertips because we created that snapshot of your customers, and the Acquia Marketing Cloud tracks the future results. Now, Amira can take a report of anybody who has seen one of their ads, interacted with their social media, drove organic or paid search, but then look 90 days in the future and understand, did they make a purchase even physically in the store, and tie it back to true return on ad spend, not just digital return. Through the lens of Amira, we saw how, leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can analyze campaign performance and understand return on ad spend and performance. This is important because we covered how your team can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to continue to learn and optimize your marketing campaigns. Meet Vanessa. Vanessa is a digital marketer who has been tasked to create some automated campaigns. Through the lens of Vanessa, you will see how, leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, your team can define audience segments, create cohorts, and then schedule data to be sent to the various systems in your marketing stack for consumption. As I switch my view, you can see Vanessa can now begin defining the audience she would like to target. Now, Vanessa is looking at any customer who has placed a transaction between 30 and 365 days, but has only placed a transaction once in the last 365 days. So we're essentially looking at first-time buyers. Your team will also have the ability to leverage a series of additional rules. In this case, Vanessa wants to target those individuals who have also had some sort of website event activity. So we are targeting those individuals who are not only first-time buyers, but have browsed our website in the last 30 days. Now, we can continue to slice and dice this audience based on any criteria we want. So, for example, if we wanted to use this entire audience, but refine them by their primary sales channel, for example, are they online buyers or are they in-store shoppers? We can use that information to create further segmented and clustered audiences just by connecting the two. We can also use this for A/B testing, but Vanessa doesn't need this today. So she will add her primary sales channels, digital and physical, and use this information to further target these audiences. Maybe for digital, we are going to offer free shipping, and for physical and store, we may offer a 10% off coupon. To continue refining this campaign, I'll go ahead and define some additional content that's required. In this case, it's important we understand data like products browse. So we are passing through all the information that we're collecting across our customers, leveraging first-party data. So this is the first-party data we collected, but your team can also tie in zero-party data. Data customers have provided to your organization, like communication preferences or product preferences. All of this can be used to further refine and make it really easy for users like Vanessa to target audiences and pick the ultimate destination where this data should be sent. In this case, we're going to send this data out to Facebook, as well as a data export for her direct mail vendor to target her physical store locations. Now, Vanessa is going to save this audience as a cohort, And this is really important because it's going to allow her team in the future to derive some really important and valuable insights around the performance of this audience and campaign. Finally, Vanessa is going to schedule this campaign. Now, I want to mention your team has some flexibility here. We can define campaigns as a one-off or even have one that's recurring as, recurring thing. In this case, every month, our campaign will update with the newest first-time purchasers. So we will schedule this out as monthly running, let's say, we'll start this off September 1st. And we're not going to set an end date. We actually want this to run in perpetuity. And once we go ahead and save this campaign, we can then go ahead and move forward with publishing the campaign. And what this will do essentially is every month, this audience will refresh. It will push all of our first-time purchasers to a custom audience on our Facebook channel, as well as drop a list to our advertising vendor. Through the lens of Vanessa, we saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, your team can define audience segments, create cohorts, and then schedule data to be sent to the various systems in your marketing stack for consumption. This is important because we covered how your team can use the advanced campaign building capabilities in the Acquia Marketing Cloud to automate retention and growth opportunities based on machine learning. Meet Whitney. Whitney is a UX designer, and she's been tasked with creating and updating some materials her team will use as part of communication with their customers. Through the lens of Whitney, we are going to see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can create emails, SMS messages, and manage forms for data collection. In this view, Whitney's going to pull up an email her team has already started working on. To modify the look of this email, Whitney's going to pull up our email builder. This is where your team can easily modify and add elements to the emails that they're working on. In this instance, Whitney's going to add an additional row of content. So we'll add a single row here, and we can do that by easily dragging and dropping that element to where we want that to live on the email we're working on. Following adding the row, this is where we're going to add some additional content. So we'll add a nice title, and we'll add some options for social. Now, as I work with text, we do have some options around formatting. We can do things like bold text or italicize, underline, everything that you would expect within that traditional WYSIWYG editor. We can even save rows for the future or even pull from pre-saved content. So there is a lot of flexibility as your team thinks about the workflow, creating these emails, leveraging our email builder. Now, as your team is creating emails, you'll even be able to preview how this email will render across different breakpoints like mobile. Now, Whitney's happy with what she has so far, so we'll go ahead and publish her changes. What we just saw was how users on your team do not need to be developers. They don't need to write code or be super technical to create these beautiful emails. Now that Whitney has created her email, she's off to her next task, which is writing a new SMS message her team can leverage with different campaigns. In this view, she will create a new text message. Again, this is going to be a bounce back SMS message. So we'll go ahead and add the appropriate details. Of course, we can add more text in this workflow. But I also want to mention, ultimately, marketers like Vanessa can decide, do I want to send an email? Do I want to send a text message? Or do I want to do, some dynamic content on the website? Or I can bundle those together into what are called marketing messages. Vanessa and your team can use marketing messages to determine and let the system pick the next best channel. So she can actually grab a marketing message and say, for example, if Paula has email as her preferred communication channel, then send an email. Or if Paula has SMS as their preferred communication channel, then send a text message instead. So rather than your team dictating the ultimate next action as it relates to your campaigns, you can have your customers define their preferences, which is so important as we think through experiences across multiple touch points. Customers want to be communicated with via their preferred channel. Now, rounding out her last task, Vanessa needs to modify an existing form her team is able to leverage with different campaigns. So in this view, we can pull up the different forms that the team currently has in place within the solution. Now, as you can imagine, these forms are made up of a variety of fields: first name, last name, preferred communication channel. We can delete existing fields, add new fields. You can see the level of flexibility your team will have as they work through and build out these forms. In this case, Whitney's going to add a new text field. In this text field, we're going to ask visitors for their favorite color, which is just another data point in the future that we'll use to drive behavior. Now, I also want to mention, since we're natively integrated with the platform's content management system, any information that your team has will be available instantly to leverage in the CMS, whether that is with an existing component or any page on the website. So we'll go ahead and have Whitney save our changes. Through the lens of Whitney, we saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can create emails, SMS messages, and manage forms for data collection. Again, this is important because we covered how your team can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to craft emails and messages for multi-channel journeys and forms for data collection. Meet Vanessa. Vanessa is a digital marketer, and at her boss's request, she has been tasked with adding a couple of steps to an existing customer journey the team has in place. Through the lens of Vanessa, we are going to see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can add additional steps to and launch campaigns. In this view, we can see the journey Vanessa is looking to optimize. She's specifically working with this current post-checkout flow the team has in place. Vanessa is going to go ahead and add a couple of steps to this journey. Now you can see the business-friendly visual journey builder your team would actually be working in as you define your customer journeys. Vanessa can see after checkout, we have some branch logic in place. You can see some evaluation steps taking place that really dictate the additional actions that should happen for an individual in this particular journey. If this is a new online customer, we are doing things like sending our new online user email. This is just one single step in the process though. Vanessa wants to go ahead and add some additional steps. What we're going to do is leverage data we have collected, both machine learning and personalization data, to evaluate what we should do next. In this case, we're going to add a condition that looks at this particular customer's likelihood to buy. So we're going to go ahead and look to see if this particular customer has a high likelihood to buy. And if they do, we'll go ahead and take some subsequent actions. So again, we want to evaluate if a visitor's likelihood is to buy. And if it is, we are going to offer a bounce back coupon. Now, the reason we're doing this is because Vanessa wants to trap and capture this visitor before they move on to other shopping. You know, they made a purchase, and we know that if we can get them back within 7 days, that increases our likelihood of success. And if they do meet this criteria, we're going to go ahead and send them an email with that bounce back offer. So we'll go ahead and add that action. We'll go ahead and send an email. And we'll define the email that we want to have in place. In this case, we're going to go ahead and create a new email. So we'll provide a name, and we'll select a template that can be used as a starting place. We want to go ahead and save this email as a placeholder, and in later sessions, we will see how members of the team can update the look and feel of this email. So in this instance, when visitors receive the bounce back offer, Vanessa can now use this information to send them to a long-term nurture campaign. Now, as I scroll through these actions, I just want to point out the flexibility that your team has. When we think about different actions that can be triggered as part of the customer journeys you are creating, we can trigger webhooks to additional sites, push dynamic content back to the website based on where they are in their journey, and we can even move particular visitors to additional campaigns. And this is exactly what Vanessa wants to do. We want to go ahead and move our visitors to a long-term nurture campaign after they've received that bounce back email. Now, once we go ahead and add our steps, we can go ahead and apply our changes and then move forward with publishing this campaign. Through the lens of Vanessa, we saw how we can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to add additional steps to and launch campaigns. Now, this is important because we covered how your team can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to build journeys that take action on campaigns and other triggers. Meet Kevin. Kevin is a developer, and Kevin's job is primarily focused on integration. Through the lens of Kevin, you will see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can capture and leverage real-time events across your digital properties. We will talk about API integrations, standard out-of-the-box connector options, and how we can batch feed data into the platform. Now, Kevin is working with very traditional and familiar tools with his team. He's leveraging technologies such as JavaScript tags to bring in event data from clicks and actions on the website. Now, given our open source nature, your team can leverage solutions like Google Tag Manager or other tag management solutions. This is important because it's going to make your team's job much easier from an integration perspective. They can leverage a vast amount of out-of-the-box connectors as well as connect into legacy systems, think ERP, email solutions. Our API architecture also supports the ability to take in that data through a file feed. You can see your team has a lot of flexibility when thinking about how we can get data into the Acquia Marketing Cloud. Through the lens of Kevin, you saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can capture and leverage real-time events across your digital properties. We talked about API integrations, standard out-of-the-box connector options, and how we can batch feed data into the platform. This is important because we covered how your team can easily manage data integrations that feed the unified data model your team can leverage in the Acquia Marketing Cloud. Meet Amira. Amira is a marketing analyst, and her job is primarily focused on data. Through the lens of Amira, you will see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, you can run detailed queries on your data set and perform direct SQL interaction with the solution's customer data platform. As I switch my view, you can see all your data within a single unified location. The benefit here is once all this data is brought into our platform and aggregated, you no longer have to use tools like Excel or need to tie into multiple databases or file extracts. All this data is now in a single unified infrastructure so that your team can run detailed queries with direct SQL interaction. It's easy for an analyst on your team who has the right skills to work within the platform. You can see the breadth of data your team, as an example, would have access to. Think transactional information, customer summary information. Marketing analysts love this because they can quickly build visualizations in a familiar language like SQL. Your team could do things like quick charting to really understand the impact of the data that you're working with. Again, all of this is available right at the fingertips of your analysts, so they aren't losing any power. As we continue through this series, we will see how other members of the team can leverage the power of data collected by our platform. Through the lens of Amira, you saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, you can run detailed queries on your data set and perform direct SQL interaction with the solution's customer data platform. This is important because we saw how your team can directly craft highly specific and custom SQL queries of data leveraging the unified CDP layer. Meet Eric. Eric is the VP of marketing, and his job is to manage strategy. Through the lens of Eric, you will see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, your team will be able to review the total 360 profile we capture on your customers, and how through machine learning, our solution delivers critical insights that will help influence your organization's strategic direction. As I switch my view, you can see Eric has access to some pretty slick dashboards. In this view, your team can pull charts fueled by data collected by our platform. The insights in these charts will drive how your team builds journeys, how your team builds communications, and targets visitors moving forward. Now, Eric wants to drill a little bit deeper. He actually wants to take a look at that individual profile level. With our solution, your team will have access to a single unified profile for each one of your customers. In this example, Eric can see all the information about his customer, Katie. We can see Katie's total lifetime value, which is a calculated metric brought together from disparate data sources, actions and events she's taken or gone through. If we actually take a look, we could see that Katie's profile is actually made up of 10 different identities that create this total 360 view of Katie as a customer. At the top of Eric's mind, though, is scalability. And one way he knows the Acquia Marketing Cloud will help him do that is through machine learning. You can see the level of insights we will be able to provide your team on your customers. Their likelihood to buy, their likelihood to engage, the best next channel to engage them on, even product recommendations. Your team will have access to all of this data so they can build out targeted next best actions for your customers. Through the lens of Eric, we saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, your team will be able to review the total 360 profile we capture on your customers, and how through machine learning, our solution delivers critical insights that will help influence your organization's strategic direction. This is important because we covered how your team can use the data in the Acquia Marketing Cloud to drive your organization's overall strategy. Meet Amira. Amira is a marketing analyst, and she has been tasked with building custom reports and dashboards. Through the lens of Amira, we are going to see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can schedule reports and build custom dashboards within the solution. As I switch my view, you can see Amira has access to some pretty great dashboards. Again, in this view, your team can pull charts fueled by the data collected by our solution. Amira's boss does a lot of traveling, so being able to consume this great data on the go is really important. So Amira is going to go ahead and make sure this report is sent out to him on a recurring schedule. And she's able to do that very easily, leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud interface. We'll just make sure that this email has a good subject, and we'll make sure that we have the appropriate address to send this email to every month. Now, I want to make clear that your team is not limited to these out-of-the-box dashboards. We provide a series of them as part of the out-of-the-box solution, but your team has the ability to add or adjust charts depending on their need. And that is what Amira is interested in doing. Amira, as a marketing analyst, has access to a business-friendly interface to add additional data points in the charts that she is working with. This is a sort of capability that is going to allow your team to easily gather, visualize, and analyze your important customer data to really understand the success of your campaigns. Through the lens of Amira, we saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud to schedule reports and build custom dashboards within the solution. This is important, again, because we covered how your team can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to build reports and dashboards that the whole team can use to track the effectiveness of their marketing activities. Meet Vanessa. Vanessa is a digital marketer who has been tasked with creating a personalization campaign on the site that promotes the company's app to first-time buyers. Through the lens of Vanessa, you will see how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, you can deliver personalizations in 3 steps and leverage content from the CMS as part of your personalization campaigns. In this view, your team can then begin to define your personalization campaign. So first, Vanessa is going to have to select the type of campaign she's going to run. Your team's going to have a lot of flexibility as you think about the different personalizations that can be delivered on your website. Our platform can support everything from A/B testing to content recommendations, which are more dynamic. In this case, Vanessa knows the audience she wants to target and knows the content she wants to target them with, so she's going to move forward with a targeted personalization. From here, we'll enter some important details about this campaign. This is a first-time buyer program. So with this campaign, we are looking to target first-time buyers. And we'll select the Figura site as the website we're interested in targeting. And in this case, this campaign is going to be scheduled for a couple of weeks and set to end after a couple of months. The ability to schedule campaigns is really just one example of how we support your team's ability to set some governance or guardrails around the personalization campaigns you are creating. Now, as Vanessa moves through the process, she's going to be asked who is the audience she will be targeting as part of this campaign. In this case, that is a first-time buyer. And from here, we'll be brought to a view where we can then begin to define what this personalization on the site looks like. Now, as your team builds out these personalizations, you're going to be able to scroll through your website, navigate to different pages, and point and click where you want your personalizations to live on the site. In this case, Vanessa is going to personalize our homepage hero. And what you see here is content coming directly from the platform's content management system. Your team will not have to duplicate efforts or bypass governance delivered by the CMS. What this really means is that you can use content that has already been created by your team as part of these personalization campaigns. Moving forward, we can publish the campaign out. So this weekend, when first-time buyers visit, pulling data from the Acquia Marketing Cloud, we can target those first-time buyers with a personalized experience on the website. Through the lens of Vanessa, we saw how leveraging the Acquia Marketing Cloud, you can deliver personalizations in 3 steps and leverage content from the CMS as part of your personalization campaigns. This is so important because we covered how your team can leverage the Acquia Marketing Cloud to create engaging and personalized experiences on your site, again, without needing to leverage any technical resources.